Alright, we're picking it up for this straight waistband. What I've done is I just came back from the ironing board and I pressed all my darts towards the center of that piece. So my back part of the skirt is pressed towards the center back seam. I've also pressed open my right side seam, and then on my front part of the skirt I press those darts towards the center. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip my skirt to the right side, so the right side is facing up, and I'm going to take my waistband here. And again, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have our right sides facing each other. And if you went ahead and made those notches in your waistband area, you should have a couple notches where there is the overlap starts, where the center and front, the center back and the center front are indicated, and as well as the right side seam. Now the right side seam is going to be right on that fold, the center part of that fold. So as you open it up, if you're like, oh, like where is that supposed to be at again? It's going to be right on that fold there. So that's where we're going to want to start. We're going to want to pick up our sample, and we're going to want to line up that notch that lands right on the fold of our waistband when we cut it, and we want to align that right with that that side seam that we've already sewn. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pin on both sides of that seam that's pressed open, so it holds those seam allowances open as I sew. So I'm going to flip that around and see how my side seam that were pressed open, I wanted to put a pin in each side so it's going to hold that seam open. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around, and I have this overlap part, and that I'm going to put right on the seam allowance, the 5/8 inch seam allowance from the right side seam. So I'm going to go ahead and line up my right edge, the raw edges along the top of the waistband. And I'm just going to put a pin in there. I might adjust it a little bit later, but for right now this is what I'm shooting for. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the right side seam that we started with. And these dart tops, if they're just kind of giving you fits, or you just don't like looking at them, you can just like trim off those little triangles. And then what we're doing is we want to make sure that they are going in the direction that they need to go, and then you're going to attach your waistband to those darts. So I'm pinning along the front or the back of the skirt, and I know that it's the back because it has this center back seam in it, and so I want to make sure that that the two that are on the inside of the dart, the two darts that are on the inside of the skirt, so those that are nearest to the side seam, those are facing towards the center back when I go ahead and pin those. And then as I approach that center back seam, I want to make sure that it's pressed open as well. And I have that notch there that is matching up perfectly with where that center back should be, and I'm going to go ahead and put a pin along one side of that seam, and then I'm going to put another pin along the inside, along the other side, to make sure that that seam allowance is also pressed, that's going to stay open when I stitch. I'm just going to keep on working along the edge of this waistband here, and I'm getting to my other dart. Now my dart needs to be facing in the opposite direction as the other ones, because they both need to be both of these sets of darts need to be placed and facing towards the center back line. So I have all of those in place, and if you need to, go ahead and place a couple extra additional pins just to kind of hold everything in exactly where you want it. And if you want to, you can adjust your pin placement to make sure that they're going in, or you can add in a couple more right along that 5/8 inch seam line, because that's where we want everything to stay flat. So I'm going to go ahead and just adjust my pins and move them down a little bit so that it's close to where that 5/8 inch seam allowance is going to be. I'm going to leave those there, everything, because that's a non-curvy area. I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple more, put another one in, move that one down, just working my way around here. And I'm always going to check to make sure that all of my darts are going in the proper direction. Okay. And then again, as I'm kind of at that side seam spot, and I want to make sure that my pins are kind of perpendicular to the raw edge here. So I'm going to just quickly adjust those a little bit, and then continue along the center front of the skirt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the far side and line up that tab area, the over-under part of the tab, to line up with that 5/8 inch seam allowance, roughly. And then go ahead and put a pin in there. So I'm just lining that up. And that tab is going to extend beyond the opening. Then I'm going to go ahead and go back and just go ahead and pin this into place. Now you can kind of hold things taut, so like at a fairly tight tension, to make sure that things line up. And then I'm going to make sure that my darts are facing in the right direction when I go to pin this down in place. And I want to make sure that that there's no like excess kind of bubbles of fabric either from the skirt or from the waistband as I pin this around. Again, making sure that those darts are facing in the right direction. They need to be facing towards the center of that of the skirt. I need to make sure these are folded in the right direction, these other darts, and one more here. And what I'm finding is that I probably just didn't line this up perfectly when I started, so I'm just going to readjust where this waistband is landing. But I want to make sure that those raw edges are matching up. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to machine baste this together at that 5/8 inch marking. So what I want to do is I'm going to start right on the edge of the skirt, which is this part. I'm going to start right on the edge and sew 5/8 inch all the way around. And I'm going to do a little bit of back stitching as I start and stop. So I'm just having that raw edge run right along the 5/8 inch guidelines that are on my throat plate and on my bobbin case. Now this waistline isn't overly curvy, so it shouldn't be too hard to keep that raw edge lined up as you stitch. And you're just stitching all the way around it. I have quite a few pins in here, so I'm kind of pausing often to go ahead and remove those pins as I approach them. And I want to make sure that everything's as flat. If I feel something with my left hand that might be a little bubbly, I want to definitely stop and make sure that everything's laying flat underneath. And I can kind of see, I had used my tracing paper and tracing wheel to indicate the 5/8 inch markings on my waistband, so even though I have interfacing on there, I can actually see through it, and I'm just stitching right along those markings, which is a good sign. Alright, I'm on the front part of the skirt now, almost through this waistband area. And as I approach the end of this waistband, I'm just going to do a little bit of back stitching to lock up that stitch, and then pull my thread tails out and trim everything real close. Alright, so once you get that done, you can flip it over and kind of see how this waistband is laying. You want to make sure that you don't have any puckers or any gathering that kind of got, maybe your under fabric got stuck in there. So do a quick check on that. If there is, you might just want to take take those seams or take the stitch line out and then readjust that where you need. What you are going to have is you definitely will have like your darts coming out of there, so don't think that that's an error. Those are darts for fit that are coming out of your waistband. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this seam flat. So I'm going to press it just as it is, and then I'm going to make sure that the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press this seam upward towards the waistband here. Okay, so that's the next step that I'm going to do, and I'm going to do that off camera. Is first I want to press it flat, and then I'm going to press it upward towards the waistband. Okay? And what we'll probably do after that is we're probably going to do some trimming. So just make sure that you have your scissors handy to do some trimming. So press this, and I'll meet you back in a moment.